sounds much better.
I don't know. There's only one thing I know for sure. If you watch
Wait a second.
Reality's
Here
Edge
we
with
go.
Doc and Buddy, you...
1 second. Wait a second. I'm going to close some windows here. We're getting a little overload. Hold on 1 second, folks. Let's see.
A lot of YouTubers will try almost ploy to tug at your heartstrings and to get more viewers, but not Reality's Edge with Doc and Buddy. We just love kittens.
One, two, 1, 2. Hey.
Check.
Can everyone hear us out there? Go ahead and give us a thumbs up when you can hear us.
Woo!
We got it back. We got the microphone. Now let's see. 1 second. I need to hold this up, so 1, 2, 1, 2. All right. Hello. Can you hear us?
I hear you great, Doc.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Doc and Buddy show. I don't see myself here, but I see Buddy. Buddy, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Doc. It is a pleasure to be with you here on the Edge.
Back on Reality's Edge. Well, it's been a minute. I think our last show was about 7 months ago. Because we've all been very busy.
No way, really?
Yeah, that's what it said. It's been about 7 months, and we've both been very busy doing lots of interesting things. We're hearing the video is a bit slow. 1 second. I'm going to put my modem here in a slightly better location. One second. Whoop, I hear the...
And I will do hand puppets to entertain the crowd. Hey, buddy. How have you been? I've been great, Doc. I've had a really great vacation, all sorts of exciting things. That's awesome. Let's talk about the fractal universe. I'd love to.
Okay, 1 more second.
I love seeing the Winnebago there in the background. Broadcasting from the heart of nature.
Yes. So let's see. So how's it? The audio is clear, but the frame rate is a little slow. That's what we're being told. We're not quite in sync. Let's see if it improves. Well, anyway, hey there, everyone. How you doing? Welcome back to the Doc and Buddy show. I'm at a remote location
again.
What
if we talk slow?
We're going to talk very slow so the frame rate can catch up.
No, where are you, Doc?
I am at a remote, undisclosed location in the northwest of the United States.
Wow.
I'm continuing my Bigfoot telepathy experiment. And
You with Bigfoot or Bigfoot to you?
well, we're going to see what happens.
That would be great footage if Bigfoot actually came in and joined the webcast.
You know, I've got my audio gear ready to record and any sort of interactions that would happen. I'm in an area where, you know, Bigfoot has been seen in the Northwest in, you know, multiple locations. And you're aware of this, right?
Of
So,
course.
yeah. So anyway, I'm at a remote location, and if there's any audio or video issues, I take full responsibility because I'm doing this remotely. And Doc is a postage stamp on the screen. Are you doing hand puppets behind my head?
I was doing them for a little bit, I have to admit.
Okay, again. You know, it's funny thing, buddy. We had this nailed about a year ago. We got this platform installed, and we were side by side on the screen. Now people are saying that I'm like a postage stamp, but hey, I mean, postage stamps are, you know, good things come in small packages. So, and we're glad that you're here. You're joining us. There's so much to talk about. It's insane, and we've got to get this all done within a 15-minute period, buddy. So you know, we want to talk about all these cool things. There has just been so much going on the different fronts. How are things going in your world, buddy?
Really well. I'm just so thankful to be learning and growing, or unlearning and growing throughout this whole process. It's great to see society taking this subject and these subjects that we care about so much very seriously now. More and more scientists are coming out talking about these subjects that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So, you know, not that we need validation, but it does help.
No, it's true, buddy. It's so exciting to see what's going on. I feel so excited every day that I wake up. You don't know what's going to get validated today that we've been studying, you, me, our audience, all of us. I feel like we had to create an alternative media here because our topics have been censored for, say, like 70 years.
And some of the topics even longer, for 1,000 years or more, you know, because of the church and so forth.
Yes, it's been true. The church censored Copernicus. They
Galileo.
Giordano Bruno.
Wow.
Giordano Bruno was a contemporary of Copernicus, and he didn't believe in the heliocentric idea that the sun was the center of the universe. He thought it might be the center of our solar system, but he went beyond Copernicus. He said, no, the sun isn't the center of the universe. There's other suns out there. How about that? For a heretical idea. And could be other planets around these other suns. And guess what? On those planets, there could be life.
What a heretic.
Yeah, he was burned to death.
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
He was put in jail and tortured for 10 years by the Inquisition.
Wow.
And finally, he was burned to death in this plaza in the center of Rome.
Wow.
They brought him out with a mask on his face just so he couldn't talk. They were that threatened by reality. So I guess, buddy, we could say we've come a long way, because even if I'm looking like a postage stamp and we're having, you know, the frame rate's not perfect, we can talk about this without any fear of reprisal. And just like you said, every day we're getting more confirmation and validation that all the topics you and I have been talking about on the show for a year, and obviously you and I have been interested in it before we met, for years and years, decades, that it's reality.
And it's strange, too, how despite so much time passing through history to us, you know, we're still learning things now that we're not literally the center of the universe. You know, there's a lot of people, and because of how the universe expands from every place in every direction, there is no center. Basically, there is no center of the universe. Because of dark energy and you know, so many people. I think we are all Galileos. Those of us who believe in these fields, we will talk to friends about anything from psychic abilities, to the powers of consciousness, to UFOs, and we still will get those Snickers. But like you say, fortunately, neither you and I will have to be burned at the stake tonight for doing so.
No, and
we're in a very lucky time.
I think that there's great, we've made a lot of progress, folks. I know it's been slow, right? It looks like it's been slow. I mean, even in our lifetimes, it's been slow. But look, as Buddy's saying, it's true. We can have a conversation here. We could bring up literally any topic, and neither of us is going to be burnt at the stake tonight for talking about any of these topics. And that's progress to me. Now, I may not land a job in academia for my interest in these subjects, or maybe I will. I don't know. That's not my goal. But I'm saying we won't be punished for gathering around the campfire here and talking about Reality's Edge.
Right on.
We understand that not everybody wants to engage these topics, and they don't have to. It's the nature of mammals and animals to kind of stick together in a group. Nobody wants to do anything that the group is going to kind of expel them, right? It's just
Absolutely.
right? And so we're afraid. And this, Buddy, isn't this what we've been hearing about all these topics recently from people coming forward, is that there's such a fear factor within the military and other places within our government that witnesses have not come forward. Oh, maybe thousands of them. Thousands of witnesses have not come forward for fear of reprisal. And now, what do we read just last week in the news? Is that the U.S. Department of Defense had a joint meeting with the Japanese self-defense forces. They're only allowed to have self-defense forces since World War II. To what? Report UFOs. How many other countries are doing this that we haven't been told are secretly communicating with the United States government about the UFO subject? While we've been told for decades that it's ice crystals, swamp gas, and perhaps the newly installed sodium lights reflecting off the plover. They have that oily sort of covering as they fly over tech. I mean, come on. It's been ridiculous, the amount of censorship. But I feel like we're making progress. Do you agree, or what do you think?
I do, but I'm impatient. I hate the fact that scientists are ridiculed, and even scientists that I've worked with on projects and seen things, are scared of talking about things.
Yeah,
they're worried to even let other scientists know that they're researching this or they're researching that. Even bringing up something that has so much evidence, like UFOs, is still a very fringe topic, and ridicule has hindered human advancement in so many ways. And right now, there's so much momentum behind all of this stuff. There's so much passion and excitement within the youth and us big adults.
Yeah.
That you can't stop it now. You can't. And I was reading a quote. I wish I had the quote in front of me from Ingo Swann, talking about the same thing you've spoken about many times. That if you don't let people know the reality of reality, how are you going to inspire kids to go further, higher, faster, and do things better than they've ever been done before? So, in a lot of ways, it's about the future, as well as knowing the cool stuff now.
Did Ingo actually say that about you talking about kids and stuff?
Yeah, well, he didn't say kids. He said for the future.
The future. No, Buddy, I agree. I think we've passed the point of no return.
Yeah, I mean, when the government starts coming out and doing this stuff, there's some parts that are the biggest secrets within these secrets.
Yeah.
We know that craft have been shot down.
Yeah.
Or many of us believe that. And that's one level of holy Toledo. And then there's the biological samples, let's say. That's a whole nother level of holy Toledo. With ramifications that are so gigantic, it's hard to wrap my brain around it. This topic is so challenging and mystifying simultaneously.
No, it's true, isn't it? We really don't know what's going to happen, do we? We don't have any idea, because when you have this much censorship and control and denial and pure bullshit, disinformation for decades, we don't really know what the truth is. And even the people that have worked with the government, like Chris Mellon and Luis Elizondo and
Yeah.
Jim Semivan and others. Now, these people are all from the military and intelligence alphabet soup agencies, right? And when they're telling us that it's a mess, the insiders from within the government are telling us a mess and they need our help. You know that it's really messed up. You know,
It was fast. Oh, it was fascinating to hear Luis Elizondo say in one of the speeches that there is so much stuff that they couldn't even wrap their arms around it. They couldn't maintain proper security levels because just ATIP alone had gathered so much information. So imagine all the other stovepipes.
Yeah.
There's literally tons and tons and tons of stuff that the government has been shielding and protecting at the highest level. This is the biggest national, quote, security secret. This is it.
Yeah.
Not just the craft,
No.
but the powers of the mind. As we
This-
know from Slide 9.
Slide 9, thank you. And thanks again, buddy, for sharing Slide 9 all those years ago. Slide 9 is going to go down in history because whatever TTSA is telling us on the surface, their slide share presentations, their keynotes. Now, we were told, apparently, Tim McMillan, when I made that statement that Slide 9 was part of some sort of classified briefing, he actually called Chris Mellon. And Chris said that was not part of a classified briefing. So, buddy, for all the stuff that's not even classified. That's this what was this interference with sensor systems and sensor disassembly? I think you had a video about you disassembling lights in the Bronx once a couple months ago. That's not even classified. So what's the class? I mean, this is.
It's amazing. Gosh, and you know what? Maybe I was just getting bitter, but as you get older, sometimes you get more bitter. But when you hear this topic, when you hear the different possibilities of human consciousness, that excites me. That makes me feel like, wow, there's so much more that we just don't see right in front of us, that if we were more observant or more well-trained or more open-minded, that we would discover so much more. And kids want to have, super abilities and hear about super spacecraft and, we're cheating our kids out, not only of an environment, but now we're cheating them out of the coolest stuff about reality.
We are. And, I mean, the scales have fallen from my eyes. That's all I could say. If I had any, they've really fallen now in the past couple of months, because I really see kind of what the bigger picture is, well, there's a cover-up. And even the people that have seen the cover-up saying it's so bad that they need help. And we're quitting. We're quitting our government jobs.
It's amazing.
So we can lose our security clearance so we can actually talk again to the public to tell them about how serious this situation is. I mean, because here's what we're talking about, buddy. Anybody, anywhere, right now, could be contacted by these extraterrestrials or whoever they are, wherever they're from. And there's not a thing anybody can do about it. This is the reality, and I'm glad not everyone's listening to this channel, because I know that could cause like some sort of panic. Not the people listening. I mean, you guys are cool, right? We do it for you. But that's what we're talking about. Anything, anywhere could show up. It could be even things we don't have names for, because we don't know what reality we're living in anymore. We don't know where we are, and that's kind of cool. I mean, I'm excited. But let's be honest, what's really going on here is there's a core within the U.S. government. I don't know if it's fundamentalist Christians, like Eric Davis has referred to them, the Collins elite. Remember? He said that.
Yes.
And I remember talking to Richard Hoover. By the way, that made news this week, too, about the extraterrestrial fossils.
Oh, I didn't know about this.
Yeah, the Russian scientists that so in 2013, I meet this former NASA scientist at a UFO conference in outside of Scottsdale, Arizona, and he is exobiologist, extremophiles, and he had quit and working for NASA because they had told him, we don't want you talking about the extraterrestrial fossils and the meteorites. And Richard Hoover was working with some Russian colleagues, and there is some others from the UK. And he said, I asked him, I talked with him for several days in a row. It was so fascinating. Uh, when he found out who was censoring him within NASA, it had to do with fundamentalist religious groups. I don't want to single out any particular religion. Any fundamentalist religion is going to impede our search for truth, in my view. So,
Of course.
So he found out that there was a secretary at some level in the organization that was blocking his papers, who thought it
Wow.
was sort of anti-religious. And then finally he was told, they told him, don't go to these conferences and talk about extraterrestrial fossils in the Orgueil meteorite. And there's a whole bunch of meteorites from the 1800s, but that you look at it under a very good microscope and you see things that look like what we would call like fossils, diatoms and, little crinoids, little creatures. Yeah. You see them in the meteorites, which are millions of years old.
Wow.
From outside the solar system.
Cool.
Yeah. So they finally told him, don't present at conferences. The Washington doesn't like it. So he asked finally, well, who in Washington? They said, the White House. The White House.
Oh my gosh.
The Obama White House said, this could upset religious groups, fundamentalist religious groups, and we have to get reelected and all this stuff. So anyway, it's that serious. So there is that element. And so I heard about this from Richard Hoover. So just to fill you in, and then I'll pass it back to you, is that on September 15th, there was a number of news organizations that released that Russian scientists had confirmed that 20 years ago, we knew that these are extraterrestrial fossils and meteorites. At a minimum, They said at a minimum, it's extraterrestrial fossils, that there's life out there. There's life out there. And Richard Hoover had been working with them. It didn't make the news until a couple of days ago.
Wow. This reminds me, of course, of that famous little caterpillar-looking thing from the Mars meteorite. And many people came out and said, oh, we're not sure afterwards that, couldn't have been a natural chemical process and this, that, and the other. But when I look at moons, like Enceladus, and Enceladus is an ice world. The whole surface is covered with ice, and underneath there's apparently a very deep ocean.
Right.
And there's a tremendous amount of cracks on the surface of the ice because of the geoflexing of being next to such a huge planet. Now, there you've got the water, the habitat, and the energy source for the geoflexing. And you see in the close flybys, I forget what craft it was, these incredible sprays of water coming out, these geysers coming out miles. And so if you imagine, bacteria, basic algae, eukarya, any of those in that ocean, that they could easily be sprayed into the universe. And, we're going to find life not only just on planets, but we're going to find dead microbial life in between, in raw space. So, I think our universe is built for life.
It's built for life.
It seems so suspiciously perfectly built for life. You have the energy sources spread out all over the place, the suns. You have the planets, all the habitats. And that's basically it. And lots of space in between.
Yes, and meteorites are made of pieces of planets that other meteorites sometimes hit, and those pieces of rock go flying into space. And they come from outside the solar system. They come from other parts in the galaxy. They're floating around there for millions of years, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. And so you're right, bud. There was a news headline I came across just a couple days ago about Enceladus. And this scientist said they think there could be a creature like an octopus in the oceans of Enceladus. And you came across that headline a couple days ago about traces of organic gases in Venus's atmosphere.
Yes, yeah.
So going back to what you said a few minutes ago, the reason this is building is younger people, younger professionals, younger scientists always are looking for new topics to make their careers around, and they're not going to get a lot of attention doing the same old stuff that their dissertation committee people worked on, right? So they're looking for new topics that are going to create excitement because they want to be interested in what they're doing too. It's why I went into fractals and chaos. It was a lot more interesting than the same old linear statistical models that the professors I knew were working with. It seemed really boring and it didn't even seem accurate, right?
Yeah.
So you got a lot of people out there who see, I mean, partly from the coronavirus, that we don't have a lot of professional competency in this country as much as we would like to believe. We don't have the competency. And so they're saying, well, if the competency isn't there, why should I pick the same incompetent topics? Why not?
Right?
It's driving it to this. So why not pick life forms under Enceladus's ocean? You can call it a hypothetical. It's not going to kill your career, but you can explore it now because it made a headline. Venus, organic gases. Now, a couple days ago, extraterrestrial, maybe fossils in meteorites, ET fossils, are going to become the new rage.
Think about it. Just in our solar system, there are like 7 or 8 really great possibilities for life locations that are different. From Venus, which they just said, to Europa, Titan, Ganymede, Mars. And when you were talking about before how, a meteorite impact will blast a piece of, something up in the atmosphere and then into space. And of course it can land on another planet, and that's called, transpermia or panspermia.
Right.
Transpermia is when it goes into space, changes its sex, and then comes back.
Right. Something like that. Yeah.
But, it just seems so, like, when I look at a tardigrade, I was having this discussion with a friend. In the world of evolution, every other reason, we always struggle to find the reason why this creature did this or developed this way. And there's something called the tardigrade, which can live in space. Another name for it is the water bear. It's this tiny little microbial creature.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be the most durable creature on the planet. It can survive in space. It can survive in boiling. It can survive in ultra freezing at massive radiation doses. And it can go into suspended animation for periods of time. We're not even sure how long. There's one specimen that they know is 200 years old, and they were able to revive it. So why would something need to be able to survive the conditions of space? So many of those aren't found on Earth, at the same time. So it's fascinating. There's so much to be explored. We may have, just like Bigelow said, the aliens could be right under our noses.
Well, now that you've said that, when we visited Bigelow Aerospace as part of the SSE IRVA meeting in 2018, I did
International
ask,
Remote Viewers Association.
Yes, we went over to Bigelow Aerospace. It had been set up by John Alexander to have a visit to Bigelow Aerospace. We went over there, and if you remember, I made a little video about this. I asked one of our, tour guides if the rumors were true that there were ET crash materials at Bigelow Aerospace. And he said, if Bigelow said it could be right under your feet, he said, yes, it's all around you. And I never, so what does that mean? Where does that, did they put it in their walls? Is there a secret door in that wall that leads to, I don't know.
Are they invisible on the tour with you?
And so that is as far as I could get, but there was someone standing next to me who I asked about this, and they said, "Oh, that room's there. I've been in it." So, yeah. So
wow.
So that's just a whole nother topic. So we got the tardigrades, which that was featured in the most recent version of Star Trek Discovery. I don't know if you had a chance to see that show, but it's on CBS. We're told there's another season coming out, season 3.
Wow.
Discovery was kind of fun just because it did deal with an alternative universe where characters are coming out to impersonate Starfleet personnel. And they're from a dark empire, a mirror empire, just like in the days of Kirk and Spock when there was like a dark, version of them. They brought this back and it turns out that the captain on the ship is actually an imposter from this mirror universe. And they all dress up like this mirror universe to fool them into thinking they haven't figured out what's going on. And they bring in tardigrades. These tardigrades are out there in space because they float around, and they find a way to tap into their energy source, which is this mycelial network of fungus that stretches across dark matter chains throughout the earth. In other words, in the Star Trek
Love it.
Discovery, dark matter is made of fungus.
I love it.
Fungus, chains of fungus, like you would see in the soil. In any forest, there's chains and chains of funguses and things. And this is what makes dark matter. And there are these tardigrades that are connected into this dark matter universe that create energy, and they can use it to create another type of warp drive.
I love it.
So
I love it.
tardigrades is kind of fun because they've been in the news recently, and it's just that you're saying they can last for. They have a special. They have a special set of chemicals that replace the water in their bodies when it goes below freezing. Their DNA starts cranking out these chemicals that puts them in a state of suspended animation. And technically, they could apparently do that forever. I mean,
I've seen them. I went out, and once I heard about this creature, my friend told me about it years ago. I was like, I have to find these. And so I went out all over New York. At the time, I was living on the Upper East Side.
Yeah.
And I was taking down lichen and moss from everywhere and checking it out over the microscope. I had this great digital microscope. And finally, I found one. The amount of creatures in that realm is staggering. And how foreign they just look to our experiences is just so weird. It's so amazing. Doc, we see only this tiny little sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. We hear only this tiny little sliver of the spectrum. All of our senses are so tiny, and this universe, thankfully, keeps unfolding all these amazing things. And why we should deny the possibilities to kids, just the fact that Star Trek episode was up and running is so cool, because now the next generation that grows up has these more advanced, neat ideas in their brains, and so things are less strange. This stuff is less strange to kids than, if they had that episode, 100 years ago. People would have been, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
Burn them! Burn them!
It wouldn't have seemed even plausible. But just like Star Trek, I don't know, did Star Trek influence you as a kid? Because it certainly affected... No, not at all. No. It affected me, and what was cool back then was the teleporter and stuff like that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The replicator, the engine.
And now
warp speed.
We're told that's all possible now. Look at the space-time metric engineering and the Kublier hyperdrive, warp drive.
And scientists have come out and said that Star Trek actually influenced them to invent things. Our phones are better than remember the early crappy communicators, Even the Motorola phone came out that was better than that. And now my phone can do, a million things. We're only hindered by our imagination and society censorship. I used to think we're only hindered by our creativity, but we're not. It's really these societal censorships. But I can't wait. I hope I can live long enough to see more of this incredible stuff and to see more UFO stuff up close in person.
Yeah. And I guess you'd almost see Star Trek like a barometer. Like whatever is on Star Trek will turn out to be real within 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Mirror universes, tardigrades out in space.
It's interesting because Star Trek is. I wonder if they did some survey or analysis of how UFOs represent near future technology. I wonder how sci-fi or technology in the Star Trek universe mirrors our inventions. If it's on the same kind of a scale. So if I know there's been like 4 or 5 inventions at least made from Star Trek, just watching Star Trek and then engineering them. And I wonder if there's a correlation at all between, how UFOs have this tendency to be, 70 years to, 100 years, something like that, they say, in terms of technology leap difference. I don't know, but like, the flying cigars, we had flying cigars, and the airships, and then we had blimps, and triangles, and now we have triangles. There's a really interesting correlation between imagination and reality and what we can imagine. Some things just stay outside of our imagination because we don't have the social influences to act as keystones to leap to these really cool ideas. So the more we put these ideas out there, kids are going to be leaping to the further and further ideas, and technology is going to be more and more amazing.
Yeah, no, it seems really unstoppable at this point. And again, like we were saying, I really feel like in the past couple months we've crossed over this critical point. Do you think so? Because I don't think there's any going back on UFOs now and UAPs. There's no way to go back and say there's just flocks of geese and swamp gas. And what did they say with the drones when I went out there to eastern Colorado?
Oh yeah,
They were saying
the big.
it was misidentified planets.
No way. Fleets of unidentified planets.
Yeah,
we know pretty. It was funny because I guess some agency came out and said, "Don't worry about it," and which indicated that they were black projects or something from the government. Do you remember who that was?
Who said it was the person that came out?
Yeah, someone or some group came out and said, we know whatever it is, we know it's not a national defense issue. I don't know if I heard that from you.
I have to tell you, I got correspondence. Someone wrote to me a letter from a couple weeks ago who grew up on the plains of eastern Colorado. And he had seen my video, and this person came up from an Air Force family. And I don't know if it's okay to share this, but I guess I'm sharing it. He didn't want me to ever to correspond back with him, but what he said is they've been seeing things out on the plains of eastern Colorado for a long time. He spoke to someone in the 70s that said there were these small discs flying around in the 70s that would land in the fields in the same areas.
Wow.
So, you know,
one of the things is this topic is so jumbled too. It's so dynamic. What can be an orb, a light bulb can be caused by a variety of different things, not just ET, electromagnetic, special circumstances. And Doc, if they come out to a point and say UFOs are real, and, what are the first questions that come to your mind?
Yeah.
I think it's by being denied by the government their knowledge of this stuff. They know this stuff. They know that stuff is visiting us. Victor Vigiani's, pages and pages of those NORAD documents that show the craft coming in through the atmosphere and even being chased. Detected tracks, unidentifiable tracks, and intercepted tracks.
Now, that is very important, buddy. I'm glad you brought that up. I just put up a video on the New Crystal Mind site, my blog. It's Rich Hoffman, someone I never heard of before, but he is the guy that founded the SCU, the Scientific Coalition for the Study of UFOs, in Huntsville, Alabama. He works as a military. He's an IT consultant for the Army in Huntsville. I believe you were actually down there at some point, weren't you? Yes, you were.
I was indeed. Yeah,
maybe
the labs
someday
there.
You can tell us what happened down there.
I can tell you. That was me just fiddling with the machines. They brought me in to be tested on some of these machines, and I made them all move.
Oh, okay, good.
One took about 15 minutes, and the guy started pestering me, saying, "What? You need some more time or something like that? Do you want to give up?" And then, like a minute or two after that, the scientist that I went with was like, "It's moving, and it kept moving, kept moving, and kept moving, and kept moving." So, woo! Power of consciousness. Woo!
So yeah, okay, good. So you've been down there and you've done some work with them, and so Rich, he gave this lecture, which is now a year old, which was great, a great introduction to the history of UFOs, but it's been updated for what's been happening in the past couple of years. And he mentions since Julie tweeted the other day, does anyone know what the other incidents he's referring to? There's been other UAP incidents with the Navy. Apparently on the USS Boxer and the USS Bainbridge, even 2017. This is stuff we haven't heard about. Well, anyway, he goes through the history of all these sightings. And this is someone who's worked with the military for 25 years. He started just a curious kid in Dayton, Ohio. And he kind of I started studying UFOs as part of a class project. And all of a sudden the newspaper was interested. And then he got invited to the base, stuff like that.
Wow.
And, yeah, so he said something. He's been talking, he would know, about our deep space sensor system, satellites that are 20,000 miles out from the Earth. That, well, I mean, ostensibly they're, pointed this way, but maybe they're looking out too. And there's meteors that come close. There was one that came close a couple days ago. Did you know that? It was only
Yes, I heard about that.
yeah. And sometimes they don't detect these till after they've passed. Well, the one the size of a truck passed by a couple of years ago, and they didn't see it till it already had gone 2,000 miles from the Earth. Well, on its way out, they said, "Oh, it was pretty close." Anyway, he said that Iranian incident from 1976, the Jafari incident of the F-4 pilots.
Yes, General Jafari. Yes.
Yeah,
he unloaded and they locked his missiles. Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff landed. I mean, all of that. I mean, and Iran was a U.S. ally at the time, so I didn't realize that it was tracked from one of these deep space satellites before it ended up over Iran.
Oh, wow. That's the first time hearing that.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, they had tracked it. This is why it's in the Air Force instruction manual in Colorado Springs. The Air Force the Air Force training facility there. Apparently, I actually read it in. I wish I had copied it when I read it in the Air Force instruction manual for new pilots. It says situations you may encounter up there, and it included UFOs, and it mentioned the Iranian incident from '76. Well, the reason they can so confidently talk about it is it's not just that it was one of our allies that, with our planes and our equipment. I didn't know until just an hour ago that this thing was tracked by, whose satellites would it be? I mean, it's so many different space agencies, I can't remember them all.
National Reconnaissance Office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're that one and all the other different space, organizations that are affiliated with the Air Force and out of that area, Colorado Springs, so forth. Yeah. So apparently they tracked this too, which is why they could see it coming in. And so anyway, buddy, it just brings up again how much information is there that it's not flowing outside the stovepipes, and the people in the stovepipes are getting sick of it, so they're defecting to TTSA. And I think the point is, and what I've come to realize over the past year, is that there's so many witnesses out there that haven't come forward yet. We haven't seen anything yet, folks. I'm telling you, because I know
nothing.
I know some of them, and they haven't come forward yet. And if these people are the tip of the iceberg, and they're telling me everything they know, not publicly, but I'm telling you, there's a lot more people out there who haven't come forward yet, and they might be people we know who haven't come forward with their encounters, their sightings, their inspections of the evidence, the retrievals, the biological entities.
Doc, it makes me think how important, it's not just a folly for society to know about this. It's not just intriguing or exciting scientifically. It may be a matter of life and death that we know about this stuff, because the amount of sightings is increasing dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's not just because we have the technology to see it. And it's not just the amount of sightings, but in each sighting, there seem to be more and more craft. There's more fleet sightings and things like that. And let's say you're an animal living in a zoo, hypothetically speaking. If you saw a bunch of zookeepers come rushing in, you might think there's something wrong. But if you just saw an occasional zookeeper every once in a while, you'd think, okay, everything's fine.
That's pretty funny.
And using that kind of analogy, it's like, wow, you could understand if you're an animal in a zoo, a lion, and you see there's tourists behind the glass flashing lights of their cameras. And so the lions are just seeing spooky, weird lights. We might be experiencing the same kind of thing, but the amount also gives me a sense of pause.
Yes.
Like maybe this is a critical time right now. Maybe this is a crucial time.
I agree, buddy.
Maybe a more advanced civilization thinks that.
Yeah. No, that's a good analogy. The zookeepers might only show up really occasionally, so we don't realize what's going on. Because, it seems like a zoo, doesn't it? A lot of the time.
It does. It does. The whole thing does.
It's either a zoo or an insane asylum. And
I think both.
And some of the inmates have guns. So, so
We sure are not setting a good example.
um, but that's a good example, and I think it's just so many witnesses are coming forward. Just to answer Julie's question, Julie asked me just in the comments, which you can't see unless you had another screen going. I can see it within our Ecamm platform here. Uh, uh, oh, yeah. I'll add this to the broadcast. Let's see. So Julie wanted to know who I was talking with an hour ago. I wasn't talking with someone. I was watching the video of Rich Hoffman. It wasn't titled well. It was a lecture to the Vietnam Veterans Association in Huntsville.
Hmm.
And he brought up sightings from Vietnam. There were big mass sightings in Vietnam.
Yes.
One of the Army generals there, Brown, what was his name? I think what was his name? Yeah, he said that they had a battle with these objects. And anyway, this is what I'm talking about, this video. And I posted it on New Crystal Mind. So this is such a good video because it's a new person I haven't heard from before. I mean, I'm not a member of SCU. Maybe I should be. Where he's bringing up evidence from someone, a kind of a military insider who works with the military on a regular basis. And that's what I'm referring to, Julie, is this Rich Hoffman video. It's on New Crystal Mind. It should have had a better title. It just said AVVVP or some abbreviation of this Vietnam Vets Association with Rich Hoffman. It didn't say anything about the topic, but what he's talking about is how much deception there's been, misinformation, and basically the government is overwhelmed with sightings that they don't know what to do with. They don't know they don't know what this is either.
I don't think they know what to do with it physically or morally. I mean, morally, this is a big issue. To shoot these things down, to communicate rather than, to shoot them down. It seems so wild. I don't know. It just seems so unbelievable that our first instinct is to shoot them down to, harvest the technology for national security purposes. Primitive. That just seems so dangerous. That's the perfect word, primitive. As opposed to trying to communicate, we would learn so much more.
So dangerous to do this. We don't know what we're dealing with. And, I think what you were saying a few minutes ago, buddy, I'm humbled by all of what's going on right now. No researcher of any of these topics has any real grasp of exactly what we're dealing with.
No.
We've been calling it extraterrestrial. I mean, it could be, but it could be other things too. I mean, it could be another intelligence that's always been here on the planet, but we just don't see them very much.
So many things that we haven't even thought of. That's such a great point, Doc. I mean, what does a lion really know about the zookeepers and the tourists that are coming to visit? Nothing. And I have to, and you've been great with me with this, is I have to remind myself when I see something or I experience something, it may not be what I think it is, because an advanced civilization could choose, in fact, would most likely choose to be portrayed in a certain way. And what's really behind what we're seeing? What are the mechanics behind it? What are the entities behind it? What's the motivation behind it? Fortunately, if it's a malicious motivation, they work on an incredibly long, slow time scale, because their interaction with us has been for an incredibly long period of time. And with that level of technology, you would think they could do devastating things to us, but they haven't.
Yeah.
Even incident after incident of us being hostile towards them.
It mostly seems this way. I mean, there was a Chris Mellon quote the other day. He said, when we talk, all these cases, we're chasing them. There's no cases yet of them chasing us. So,
great point. Great point.
We don't, I just think we don't really know what we're dealing with here. We still don't know with remote viewing. And I know this is a topic that you want to talk about today, and we can bring it up in other sessions too. We don't know even what that is and why exactly it works.
What's the mechanism?
We don't know about Bigfoot and why Bigfoot seems associated with hauntings and UFOs, and why Bigfoot and UFO seem to be related to electromagnetic interference. This is something that Rich Hoffman talked about a lot, being a Huntsville, Alabama missile guy. You know, it's where the missile testing ranges are down there.
Yeah.
Not the range, it's the development, right, of
Yeah,
NASA.
that's where they came up with Saturn V and everything.
Exactly, right. So he brought this up in these various cases of electromagnetic interference. He said it happened in Vietnam where they were all outside watching a movie or something, and it dropped right down and came up, and all the generators stopped simultaneously. All the trucks stopped for about 4 minutes. Everything stopped. And then how is this related to what Julie brought up a few moments ago? EVOs, exotic vacuum objects, something I've been studying recently from the work of Bob Grenier and Martin Fleischmann. The Hutchinson effect. You brought up, now I have to give you credit, buddy. You brought up Hutchinson a couple of years ago, and I wasn't on track. The Hutchinson effect is super important because Hutchinson was trying to reproduce Tesla's technology, and he did. And you get these strange metal artifacts, and things are bent. And when you look at it under a microscope, there are these strange tracks that suggest these little balls of light, microscopic balls of light, have been moving. We're not talking about a classical phenomenon. We're talking about a quantum object that can suck in energy from the quantum vacuum and self-sustain itself for long periods of time through metal and change it, and huge amounts of energy, magnetic monopoles. So all these topics seem to be related in some way, because where you have UFOs, you get these balls of light, you get Sasquatch, you get the failure of the generators, which leads the poltergeists to come out, and then pretty soon you're in Antarctica.
Well, you know what's right in the middle of all of them is us. We are right in the middle. Our consciousness is right in the middle of all those different topics, in the middle of those fields. You know, consciousness plays such a big role in all of these phenomena. You know, the Hutchinson effect just is a tip of the iceberg, but dramatic evidence of how much raw energy can be, either if you believe like Doc and I that it's taken from the vacuum. This energy is taken from the vacuum and applied to metals and woods. It can do, levitation. He transmuted some metals from one metal into another, and the samples are still microscopically changing.
Yes, it's alchemy. It's literal alchemy.
Literal. And one of the really cool things I remember from my research into Hutchinson is there is a clockwise effect that happened consistently. They would find out that if something spun, it would spin clockwise. And I don't know how that plays into it, but that's something that Dr. Hathaway had noticed as well, too. And, you wonder, Doc and I think on some level we think and believe and operate like, the mind has the ability to tap into any space or time. Remote viewing is clear evidence of that.
Yeah.
People talk about the mind's ability and everything being one, from Bohm's implicate order to, the Akashic records, all that stuff. So we're really on the cusp of this knowledge. This phenomena represents future technology, future science that we're just getting the little tiny tastes of right now. And it's exciting. It's the most exciting topics, I think, for kids and even for adults. Once you allow yourself to get past any of those religious stigmas, and other sociological stigmas, this is exciting stuff. And it could be, our savior.
Yeah, we're getting into all this stuff. It's true. It's just fascinating.
It's so exciting,
stuff. Someone says, Shawnee says, we're Devo. We're devolution instead of evil.
We are Devo.
Well, we're working on it. We're working hard, guys. Come on, give us a little credit. I mean, we all got up today and we did our thing, and here we are. So something's working right. Someone mentioned, Zignal mentioned Hessdalen lights. Yes, this is what Hessdalen lights are, EVOs, because you get that sulfur smell. You get the transmutation of elements, and the photos of them are very consistent with naturally produced EVOs just in that area from the crystalline makeup of the Earth, that it's pumping out EVOs randomly. Not the only place. You get them in other places too.
The Marfa lights, the Brown Mountain lights.
These are quantum objects produced by the Earth that sustain themselves from a quantum energy source, but they produce effects at classical level that we can see, and you know, create um, lots of energy and electromagnetic effects, and they can, it's what's been called ball lightning, but it's actually not, a ball of just lightning. I mean, it's a self-sustained object from the quantum realm.
It's fascinating. And with Hestelin, they have really brought science to bear on the issue, and the stigma has been removed, and they have a 24 hours a day station set up there, and have for decades now. And one of the most fascinating pieces of information that I gleaned from my study of Hestelin was they did spectrometry, which is a real simple method to put a little rainbow on the bottom of pictures, and that rainbow will tell you what elements are in the object that's emitting light.
Oh, that's
and
right.
And they found
right.
scandium. They found scandium in the objects, which I thought was fascinating and could be a hint, could be a clue. Scandium's one of those rarer.
Scandinavia. Yeah.
I would guess so. I guess that might be the word origin. But
it's
another little clue.
It's a clue because it's like, you get these rare elements. You get elements transmuting, as Bob has shown in his channel. I mean, his videos are fascinating. You get this transmutation of elements in these EVOs. It escapes my mind exactly which metals are getting transmuted. It's very specific, but it's obviously not an ordinary reaction. There's no way to explain it chemically. It has to be happening at a quantum level. And you get a lot of energy being released, which is why he's absolutely convinced at this point. He's actually traced it all the way back to Tesla. This is what LENR is. Low energy nuclear reaction, Rossy, cold fusion are all variants of these this sort of transmutation effect, where you get these sort of self-sustained plasmas, and it can generate electricity. It's based on when you have this kind of phenomena going, you get magnetic monopoles. The elusive magnetic monopole, like the black swan used to be. A magnet with only one pole, and the magnetic monopoles go around like eating substances and transmuting them into other types of metals. And it can produce a lot of electricity or a lot of heat, depending on how it's configured. So it's fascinating stuff.
And that's one of the things that Hutchinson created, was magnetic monopoles. He created so many different types of these effects. I think in the future he will be revered. And he's an example of not just these objects existing in isolation, but there's human interaction here. There's a power of consciousness going on in here too, which to me is so fascinating. I never am bored looking for the envelope of the powers of consciousness, from not just the ability to know information from non-locally or different times, but from the ability to affect matter. That is so mind-boggling. Every time I've had an experience with that, even if it's something simple that most everyone believes in, like the power of prayer, that's essentially psychokinesis. But my work with machines and the studies that have been done on machines for 150 years and dice rolling, the mind affects reality. That is so freaking cool. It's far bigger than The Secret.
Yeah,
it's like the super secret.
The super secret.
And it gives power to everyone. Everyone has power. It's and it's about belief too. You can't do these things if you don't believe, and if you don't try.
It's the same thing that Tesla ran into, which is that they didn't want to back someone who was going to create energy that couldn't be metered and measured.
Oh,
right?
Bam, Doc! I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it.
I mean, because he had come up with some of this stuff in his own way, and the system we're in doesn't want to back something that you can't charge for, pretty much, right?
Great point. Hutchinson created batteries with just rocks. He went outside, he got these different rocks, he put them in a thing, and these batteries are still kicking out energy. And I don't think battery companies or gas companies or oil industry would appreciate if everyone could make their own batteries.
No, that's really what it comes down to. And but again, all these systems have a tipping point. in John Alexander's book Reality Denied, which is a great book. I mean, he has chapters on all these different phenomena and his experience with them. They went up to visit Hutchinson, remember, in there, and unfortunately there was a real skeptic with him that kept sabotaging the whole thing.
That'll mess up the environment.
Yeah, John just says this guy messed it. He was just so negative and looking for any sort of way to, but he did get to see the samples, of the metal. And so people have been discovering and rediscovering it. I think what we're finding is the milieu, buddy, of our social environment has to be right before people are receptive to these ideas, or you're just going to get a backlash. And now that we can see from the COVID-19 pandemic how messed up the bureaucracies are, that they can't get anything right, that their models are wrong, that they can't respond. There's no one basically looking out for us. There's no one capable of doing it. Now that we see the limitations of our existing system, it can serve us in a beneficial way to realize, well, how much of these other topics should we have been paying attention to that just didn't make it to the top of the National Science Foundation's grant preferred priority list? Because, we can't have someone upsetting the whole apple cart, can we? We have to reinforce all the stuff. And anyway, so I think these are actually good times for new discoveries, because we don't have the resistance, because people can finally see that the emperor has no clothes. I mean, basically, I'll say it in a nutshell: the bureaucracies are incapable of dealing with anything. They're just bureaucracies serving bureaucrats.
And they really do nothing but hinder us, especially with the advancement of science. Science is not advanced by bureaucracies. It's hindered.
No. It's really hindered, and they've been hindering all these topics for a long time, right? I mean,
big time.
And there were so many opportunities to bring these topics out. There have been so many good sightings and cases and experiences, and but anyway,
even if you accumulate right now, if you accumulate anecdotal evidence, that could give you some very important lines of scientific exploration.
Important
at pivotal areas. We know, and there's a consensus that consciousness connects a lot of phenomena in ufology together. And, that area alone, the exploration of consciousness in relation to UFOs and the wide range of phenomena, is a huge topic that, it may be funded at a high level right now, but it sure doesn't look that way. And that's because of what you say, bureaucracy and, religious dogma and all this stuff. We need to start another country, maybe like a cyber country.
Yeah.
That's just enlightened people, since borders are almost irrelevant nowadays with technology. We could start a borderless, enlightened society that prizes science above Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. You could do the whole thing that way. You have cryptocurrencies. You could have crypto governments.
Oh, yes.
You could just fund it differently, and because look, there's just a lot of promising discoveries out there, and I think a lot of us are. Well, you and I, buddy, we know this. We've all worked with different people that are researching this in their own way, and so far it's been funded privately. Really, the only real research has been funded privately, and then those people sort of don't want to share it necessarily, or it seems to get bogged down. But also, it's us too. We have to be willing to really embrace the research and the curiosity, and not be afraid of, because we don't know where this will take us, but I'm sure it's got to take us something better, a better place than where, folks, if you think of how much money we spend on these organizations that run our society every year, the billions and billions and trillions, and this is the best we can do. I mean, buddy, you had COVID. You couldn't get treatment. There was no place around you to get tested. You were on your own, right? You had it.
Yeah.
And you were
and I put money into the system for half a century. It's amazing, Doc. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
You're a brilliant man, in my opinion, with a lot of tremendous amount of research across the spectrum of phenomena. What are your top candidates for causes? What causes these things? What are your top candidates?
Well, we'll get into that in the next episode, I guess.
Woo! It's those are the important second questions. We can hover around these first questions, but those second level questions are really fascinating to explore. Is this just stuff of the mind? Is it a combination? All of these questions are just it kills me. I so much want to know.
It's a good topic, and we're gonna have to save this for the next episode because it's something that I consider every day. And obviously, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing unless I thought there was a connection between all of it. And back to the reality is basically one thing. It isn't lots of things. It's one thing. But that doesn't mean our conscious mind has a grasp of what it is.
Mm. Yeah.
It's just a lot bigger. As someone who does RV, those of you who do RV, you know how limited the conscious mind can be with regard to information. It's just reflecting the programming it received. It doesn't see what's really going on out there. And there's a bigger reality out there.
Our senses are only evolved to survive on this planet at a certain elevation with certain conditions that are very specific. When you really think about how much we've been evolved into a little corner, our senses are, the one thing that can break free of all that is your mind, your consciousness, your thoughts, love, things like that.
It's true. We've been conditioned and we're oriented towards survival. Our society has brought all of us up to be oriented towards survival the way society sees that. But when things change, when the universe changes, and it changes, those older ideas don't work anymore. They worked while they worked 1,000 years, 2,000 years, 100 years, and all of a sudden they're not enough. And all of a sudden, you get enough people with enough experiences of something else, and you have things like the internet and communication, and we all get together and say, well, there's something else, and no one's talking about it. There's something else, and no one's talking about why. And eventually, you get enough people asking why the guardians have to give way. The walls fall down, and we'll find out what's on the other side of the wall, I guess. Because one way or another, we're getting more witnesses coming forward.
And fast.
Lots of witnesses, credible people who are saying there's just a lot more life out there. There's a lot more phenomena, and it's been really held back for decades. For better or worse, here we are right now, and we can take charge of it. And that's why I said, well, we can talk about the different ideas of next time. There are a lot of different specific.
It's a big topic. Someone who's a very well-known scientist, who I don't necessarily have the permission to say the person's name, but it really technically doesn't matter, but a very well-known scientist that most people who are into ufology know who this person is, has studied some of these meta materials, these nano materials, supposedly parts of spacecraft.
Yes.
And described them, said it was less technology and more like an A-port.
Right.
Which is something that has just stuck with me. I mean, some of this stuff, as you would imagine, an advanced technology would look so different that it would be magic. Like I forget who said that, or maybe that was Sagan, I'm not sure. A technology of a sufficient advancement would appear like magic to us. And so much of this stuff appears like magic to us. How does it appear here and then reappear over here? How does Hutchinson do this? How does, it's magic. And magic is fun to explore. We've got to unleash the minds of the youth on this topic.
Yes. We need to get on with it because people would realize
show a craft.
Yes. Anyway, these are all fascinating topics, and it's glad you could all join us again. Our hour has gone by very quickly.
Wow, an hour already.
But we will talk more about these subjects and more specific stuff in our next episode of Reality's Edge. Because that's where we all are, folks. We're on the edge, but hey, we're all here together on the edge, so it's kind of fun. We can have a party out here, right? It's a kind of fun place
nice being on the edge
instead of panicking. And there's so many people. So many people are upset for so many reasons and important reasons right now. There's a lot of negativity and angst and things that we have to go through as a society, things we need to deal with. But don't forget that there is a broader picture too of possibilities that we could explore. And buddy, you're mentioning some of them, so there's also many things to get excited about right now too.
You know, in the past, maybe I've been more pessimistic on different issues, but I've really become excited with all the exploration and the new possibilities and the powers that we all have, and to find the powers we each have to get a little glimpse deeper and deeper into the abyss, a little deeper past reality's edge and into that darkness, into that umbrageous night. It's exciting.
Yes, it is. Well, anyway, folks, thanks for joining us here on Reality's Edge. We will see you next time. And
We love you.
I'm going to switch to our theme, and we will all talk to you very soon. Until then, we'll see you on Reality's Edge.